So why don't, well, I'll go ahead and set up my computer, but why don't you just start, like, telling us about Grand's house in Etowah.
Grand's house in Etowah. Well, to back up, Grand was working in Georgia when he heard about the railroad being built, or had been built in Etowah. And that was the new line from Knoxville to Atlanta. It had an old line before then, which went from Etowah over to Copper Hill, down to Blue Ridge, down to Atlanta. But they wanted a straight line, so they built this one. And he'd heard about jobs being open, so he came to Etowah in 1907 and applied for a job and was made conductor on the south end, which meant it ran from Etowah to Atlanta. And he came by himself first, and then when he had found a little house up on 9th Street to rent, Mother and Jack, my oldest brother, Jack, he was 2 years old, and they came to Etowah and got off at the train down to the station and was walking up 9th Street. And of course the streets were muddy and there were no concrete sidewalks, and they had cross ties to get across the street. She stepped off in the mud and lost her galosher. And she said, if I'd known it was going to be like this, I'd have stayed in Georgia. But they went on, and they had this little house up on 9th Street for a while, and then Daddy had a Bob Dodd build the house on the corner of Georgia Avenue and 10th Street, and that was 931 Georgia Avenue. So the house was built in 1908. Mother was very much pregnant with Frances, your grandmother, and they moved in on Christmas Eve of 1908, and Frances was born January the 6th, 1909. So from then, from Frances on, the children were born in that house, and I was the last of 8 children being born there. Of course, 3 had died before I was born. One died in Georgia. That was the okay. Well, let's see. Can you stop it?
Which one we did?
The first one was oldest one was Jack. Jack was born in Atlanta on Jones Avenue, and then George G.L. was next, I believe.
George Leonidas? Is that
Leonidas? Yeah. And he died, I believe I'm getting this straight, I might have it backwards. There's George Leonidas and then Albert, and then they both died in infancy and were buried in Pine Log down there at Pine Log, Georgia. And then Mother had Francis, and then Thomas, and then Ruth, and Floyd, and me. And I was born in 1920. And Mother was 36 years old when I was born. And of course we grew up there. Jack was about nearly 14 years older than me. And by that time, a little bit later than that, he became a professional at running off. He ran off and hoboed and would be gone a while, and then he'd come back. Of course, he got through high school, and then he went to a military school just a little while in Virginia.
Was that a Grant's insistence, or is that his decision?
Well, I guess it was in Grant's probably. And then Frances went through high school there in Etowah, and she married Joe Gillum when she was a senior in high school. She married him on December the 24th, the year before she graduated. and they kept it a secret. And then when she graduated, she moved to Athens with Joe.
I can't imagine Francie doing something like that.
Yeah.
She was kind of
we must
Kind of
always.
feisty in her younger years, huh?
And then, of course, Ruth went through school there, graduated from high school in 1933, and she went on to East Tennessee State up at Johnson City for 4 years. She played the violin, and she got a scholarship to play in the orchestra there. Floyd was next, and he played football, and he was very good at punting the football, and his nickname was Senator. And the reason he got that name was there was a Will D. Upshaw that ran for president, and I don't know, it must have been on an independent ticket or something like that because he didn't make much splash. But anyway, the kids in Etowah nicknamed him Senator because this man was a senator. And of course he was a distant relative. I don't know exactly how, but way off somewhere. And Floyd always was called Senator, but Etowah was a town for nicknames. Almost everybody had a nickname. But my dad didn't want anybody called nickname. He wanted us called full names. So Ruth was called Ruth Elaine, and Frances was called Frances Elizabeth, and I was called BerthaDean. So he never did want it shortened. And it was fun growing up there in Etowah because it's not like it is now. We had a lot of freedom. However, I lived on 10th Street, as we told you, the house was on 10th Street. I really didn't know kids on the other side of, say, 8th Street. It's just real funny in a small town, unless they went to church with you, And that's all. Our getting to know each other was at church and at school. And we all went through the elementary grades there. I started, of course, I was the last child. And I don't know whether Mother was real anxious to get rid of me or what, but she got my books. And my birthday being in February, I couldn't go to school that fall, that I was only 5. So she got the books at school, and she taught me at home. And she took me to the school after the first of the year, and I stood up and read 2 pages of Baby Ray for the teacher, and she let me start school. And I finished that grade. I just had a half a year, but I finished that grade. So I went on. And one day, I'd gone to school, and for some reason, Ruth or Floyd or somebody was supposed to come by and get me and take me back home. I didn't know the way home, so I cried, and my teacher took me back home. But we walked back and forth and even went home for lunch. We lived, I guess we lived about 6 blocks from school, and we would walk for lunch. And the children that lived on the other side of the railroad, Etowah is a one-sided town. Tennessee Avenue is the main highway through town, and on the other side was the railroad tracks. And on the other side of that was East Etowah. And if you lived over there, they had to walk to school, and they brought their lunches in a little pail. They'd have baked sweet potato, or they'd have biscuit and sausage. And I thought it would have been the most wonderful thing in the world to get to have one of those lunches, But I always had to go back home and eat and then come back to school. But we had some real good times there. Floyd was 22 months older than me, and he was one of those that delighted in teasing and doing all manner of things. Catherine thinks Robert was a terror at home, but Floyd was really one. One time we were at the barn, and he decided he'd see if he could saw my head in two. He took the saw and he was going to saw my head, but I objected to that and got away from him real quick.
Yeah, he showed us the bullet holes that he shot in the fire.
Yeah, that was when he was quite, he should have known better, of course, he was older. But he and the boy put in the back, put a pipe, and they had made a little hole in the back, but they put their gunpowder in, and then they put a ball bearing in there, and they lit it back here, and both of them got down, and that thing shot and went through the garage door, through the windshield of the car that was parked in the garage, and fell over into the back seat. You can imagine what an impact it had in anybody's head if they'd gotten in the way.
You got in trouble over that.
Well, he didn't. Not really. It just seemed like everybody was so relieved that he was well, that he lived through it, that they didn't say
He was
anything.
real proud when we were after Francis' funeral. And we stopped by the house and he was showing it to us.
Mm-hmm. And another time, we were playing Follow the Leader, and I was behind him doing everything he was doing. He got around to the front, and Mother always had a window box of flowers on the front there, at the front window, to the bedroom window. And he swung on it, and then I swung on it. Well, it collapsed with me and came down on me right here and just filled my eyes full of dirt. Well, doctors came to your houses then, and Mother called the doctor, and he came and cleaned my eyes out, and I was no worse for the tear. But so many things Floyd did. One funny thing, I guess, I don't know, it wasn't funny to the people that got hit with the water, but his upstairs window, he tied a rope, and then he rigged a pail of water up in the tree, and it was right over the sidewalk. So at night, after it got dark, he'd sit up in his window, and when people would come along, he'd pull that pail and drop the water on them. They wouldn't know where in the world it came from because they couldn't see.
I remember the model airplanes he made.
Yes, he made model airplanes and put motors to them.
And his friendship with the Indians, he had an Indian friend, didn't he? They came to...
Well, now, the Indians came to play basketball from the Cherokee Indian Reservation, and one stayed at our house. That's the way we didn't have any dormitories like they did up there, so they went in the homes to spend the night, and he spent the night at our house. And then we went up there. Our teams played up there, and I was on the team, so I went up there to play. And this Indian gave me a bow and arrow. It was big. I was real proud of that. I kept it for a long, long time. But that was about the Indians. And let's see, some other things. When I was 3 years old, we had a neighbor named Pax, the Pax. Well, they had a farm out past Etowah, out west of Etowah, and they had this chicken that started to set, They wanted to put eggs under and hatch baby chickens. So they were going to take that chicken out there that day, and I decided I'd go with them. And they didn't know it. And they had a T model Ford. And so there was one side that didn't open, the doors didn't open on the driver's side. And I got on the running board and laid down. 3 years old. So they took off up, I guess it went up 8th Street, and they started up the hill up there. Well, it was, looked like a gully. It looked like a cliff to me, I guess. And I started to cry. And that was the first time they knew I was anywhere around. So they stopped the car and turned around and came back. And Mother had lost me. She was quite relieved when I showed up. But I didn't take any more trips like that. And then Floyd was going to school one day, and that was before I started. He had his little overalls on. He had a book satchel on. He carried it strap over his shoulder. It was right here. He stepped off of 9th Street onto the street, and wham! Mr. Carroll Long hit him with his car, ran over him.
Floyd?
It ran over that book satchel. Now that was a Ford. I guess it was an A model Ford. and it didn't do anything but broke his pencil. But Mr. Long was scared literally to death. He picked Floyd up and ran home with him, and that satchel had slipped down, and Floyd's face was nearly blue when he got there with him. Oh, Lord. I don't know what kept Floyd from being killed. Another time, he rigged up a tire swing out of a tree on the 10th Street side of the house, out of the tree there, and he was swinging out, you know. Here come a car, and he hit the car and knocked him out. Just knocked him out. But just so many things happened to him. It was sort of like things that happened to Catherine Ann when she was little.
Oh, yeah?
BerthaDean, if you could talk a little bit about Mother, because every time I talk with Mariota, she tells me about another escapade, how they had their evening gowns on and sneaked out of the window from the upstairs and went to dances. Do you remember any of her escapades?
It wasn't the upstairs. Is the front window there on the porch. They'd slip out and then come back and slip back in.
Who's Mariota?
A friend.
Good friend.
Mm-hmm. I don't know a lot about your mother's, really. I don't. I remember she played tennis a lot, and there was a tennis court 2 or 3 blocks away from home, and she'd go and play tennis. And
Mariota said that's where they met the boys too. I think Mother was really interested in young men. And meeting real early in the morning.
And then the basketball, she played basketball. We have a picture of that team. Yeah. And but she was quite athletic. And another thing that happened to me, we were picnicking down on Hiwassee River. Of course, I think your mother, she was already married. And but there was Mother and Daddy and Ruth and Floyd and me and Francis. I think we were down there on the Hiwassee River, and Francis was a real good swimmer. There was this big rock that went out into the water, and she got me. I was 11 years old, and she took me with her, and we went off the rock, and we were just going to swim down to where they were having the picnic, just to the beach, and the current should have just carried me. But instead of carrying me in, it carried me out. And I got a little bit farther and farther, and I started going under. I wasn't that good a swimmer. And I started going under, and she came to help me, and I pulled her under too. So we had gotten not too far out from shore, but Daddy plunged in, like your Daddy did to get Gail, and pulled me out, watch and all, but it didn't hurt that watch. But a lot of people were down there, and they remembered Dan Ivins was one that he'd always remember them pulling me in, turning me upside down, getting the water out of me, you know. So lots of things. I don't know how Mother stood it. Oh, one thing that she did, she took us down on the train to a place called Probes in the summer for like a week. And there was this big 2-story house down there that I suppose they rented or something. And we took straw mattresses and oil, stove, and everything that we would need, you know, for the week. And there was a creek that went along. Well, that's where we washed our clothes, down on that creek. And then there was a place on further up that was called Blue Hole. And it was called Blue Hole because it was very deep. And young ones were not allowed to go up there, but Francis was a good swimmer, and they could go up there and swim. But and down there at Probes was where, when Jack was just a young boy, I don't know whether he was 13 or 14, but the equivalent of Boy Scouts, I don't know what they were called then, but they were down there, and there was where the railroad across this creek was a real high trestle, and lots of rocks. The creek wasn't very deep, and lots of rocks under there. And the train would stop just on the other side to let people on and off. Well, one day this boy, when the scouts or whatever they were called was down there, was on the trestle and the train came. And he was caught on the trestle, so he jumped or fell to the rocks below, and it hurt him. Well, he really died. But my brother, there was no telephones, you know, and Jack ran from there down to Reliance. I don't know how many miles that is, but on the tracks to tell to the telegraph operator that was there, and he called Etowah for a doctor and for this boy's father. And they took them down on one of those hand cars, you know, that pump. So they went down on the hand cars, but this boy was a Wyatt. His name was W-Y-A-T-T, and he died. So this boy's mother always remembered that Jack ran to get the doctor and to get his dad. But we had some times. Our main fun when I was growing up was like hiking over the mountain. And we, on Saturdays or something, we'd take our lunches in a sack or something, and we'd go hiking, which was quite a ways. Go up to, there was a spring on the side of the mountain, and when we were young, Daddy used to go over there and get water in these big jugs. And they thought that iron water was real healthy, you know, and I guess it was. And bring the water back to Etowah, and we'd drink that water. But there at the house, Jody, do you remember the hydrant on the back porch? The water that came up on the back porch? Well, there was a well there at one time, you know, under there, and before Etowah got city water. And after the Etowah got city water, Daddy ran the pipe down into that well, and that water that came up on the back porch, we drink it, was real cold. So
But they had the gourd. They drank out of gourd.
yeah, you'd have a gourd there hanging. And he fixed, it didn't have a laboratory or sink or anything, you know, it was just like a little bowl, I think. And the water that ran out ran into the fish pond that he had built. He had built the fish pond so the excess water would run out into the fish pond. But he loved his
kept his
fish.
tools so neat. Every tool was in order, and his tool chest was in order, and he just really was neat. His cars were wiped clean. I don't know why he didn't pass that down to his granddaughter, but
Well, you know, the men did not like to ride with him work with him on the railroad. In the caboose, you know, what would be back there? Brakeman would be back there. Because he was the boss, you know, the conductor was the boss of the train. And he cooked on the caboose. And he would have the men just clean those pots and pans. I mean, he wasn't pleased if they weren't really clean.
he had
He scoured them. I mean, he scoured everything. Even the backyard, he picked up every leaf and paper and everything. And I guess that would come down from his grandparents, his mother and dad, I mean. Because out in the country, they swept the yard, you know. I guess they picked up the chicken feathers.
swept the dirt.
And swept the dirt clean, you know. So Daddy, when he got older, he fixed a long pole with a nail, sharp nail on the end of it, and he'd go out and pick up the leaves.
You remember the stilts that Gran made?
Yeah, I remember the stilts.
I learned to walk on stilts. That was good, and if I could jump on stilts, hop on stilts, and play games on stilts. I haven't seen stilts in a long time. Did you ever use stilts?
My dad made me some. Maybe that's what it's.
And we used to fix tin cans with strings or wire and walk on them, you know. And then our skates, oh mercy, we had never had a new pair of skates. It always had rubber bands to tie them on your foot, to hold them to your feet and everything. And we'd make...
You skate on the sidewalk?
Yeah. And we made scooters. We'd take old skate wheels. Of course, I wouldn't make them. Floyd could. Put two on the front and two on the back of a board, and then up here in a handle, and have a scooter, you know. Another game that they played was caddy, and they just had a a piece of wood that they'd sharpen the ends on both sides, and you put it down on a rock and hit it with a stick, and it'd go up, and then you'd knock it. I don't know what the game really meant. One thing, do you remember the Flying Jenny we had outside there? Outside the fence, they used a telephone pole for the base, and put it down in the ground. I mean, it was firm, and it was right outside the garage there, on the street side. And then a long, I guess it was a 12 by 4, something like that, board, huge, long. And then on each end were handles. And in the middle they put a spike. And one person would get on the end. It's like a seesaw, you know. But it went round and round, and somebody would push you then, and you just fly. We had that for a while, you know. I don't know what all we had there.
There was a swing. It's a big tree. It's a big oak tree.
Yeah, we had that big swing.
So you're saying that Gran got his fastidiousness from his parents? That he was so clean because his parents were...
Well, the yard. You know, country folks always sweat. They had chickens, you know, and ducks. They'd pick up the feathers, and then they'd just sweep that yard. They didn't have grass. They swept the yard clean.
So did you know this would be Jackson and Sarah Jane?
Yes.
Did you know that? Did you ever?
Oh yes. We went to Cartersville regularly on the train, and my mother would cut Grandpa's hair, trim his beard, and he said he kept a beard because if he didn't, the women would try to kiss him all the time.
Good for him.
He was cute.
I remember Gran's sister Maud, who was the old maid. Tell the story about why she was the old maid.
Gran had a sister? I didn't even know that.
She had 2 sisters.
Gran had 3 sisters. He had Rosabelle, and Aunt Lizzie was the oldest, and then Maud was the youngest. Well, Maud was in love with a young man, and it didn't suit her father and mother at all. So they put their foot down and wouldn't let her see him, and she said, "You'll be sorry. I'll make you sorry for that." So she went to bed. Literally, she went to bed for the rest of her life. And they took care of her for the rest of her life. Of course, she outlived them.
What a life.
Did she ever get up?
Well, she'd get up when she wanted to.
After they died, though, who took care of her then?
They always had somebody come in and cook and all for her.
That was Maud that did that?
That was Mom, yeah.
Remember her name? Or what's that?
No, I don't. Maud. No, that was Aunt Lizzie.
Aunt Lizzie was
Sarah
married 3 times?
Elizabeth. Yes. Twice to Smith and once to Hall.
And they all took her money.
Really?
Well,
That's what Mother said was going to happen to me. Better not get married again.
Rosabelle died before she married. She never married, and then he had a brother named Albert, and he died early.
I remember Uncle George.
Yeah, George lived in Dawson, Georgia, and he was his wife was named Claire, and George, yes, Daddy was younger son.
Fred looked so much like Uncle George.
He did. He really did. Uncle George has one daughter, as far as we know. She's living, and in Dawson. But we never hear from her. Louise. She was married to Robert McCormick, and they lived in California. You know, he worked for Walt Disney till he died, and then she moved to Georgia. Let's see, Daddy was a commissioner of education twice in Etowah. And when
Oh, good.
oh, my train of thought's gone. He was commissioner of education twice, and he was in the Masonic Lodge a long, long time. Very interested in that, Mason. He went on to be, what do you call it, master?
Potentate?
What?
Potentate?
No, he was chaplain, but he was, got his 50-year pin, and they honored him. He was the rainbow dad of the girls' rainbow, order of Eastern Star. Catherine was the only one that go in that. He was very much pleased with that, and very much displeased that I didn't want to join the Eastern Star. But I didn't. And of course, we were all members of Wesley Memorial United Methodist Church. That was the Southern Episcopal Methodist Church originally, before they combined, joined all the Methodists together, And Mother was a Baptist. Did you know that? Mama Upshaw.
Southern Baptist?
She was a Baptist, and I don't think they had divisions back then. But when she came to Etowah, she was always a Methodist then. She's on with Daddy. In fact, she went before he did, I think, to that church. And we grew up in that one church there on 10th Street and Ohio Avenue. So we didn't have far to walk. I know one time Mother couldn't go to church, and Ruth took me, and she was 5 years older than I was, And I had on my new shoes, and they had recently tarred the street, and I got tar all over my shoes, my socks, and she just thought Mother would kill her, but she didn't. But on Sundays, Jody, we would have Daddy, built in the back porch, made a room out of it, really, and we always had dinners out there. Had this big long table on the back porch, and in the summers we'd have gardens, and the table would just be laden full of food, But before we went to Sunday school, in the summer we'd always get that ice cream freezer out, the crank type, out of the basement, and make ice cream. And that was a ritual that we did just about every Sunday. It'd usually be peach ice cream, and it was good. And the dog that we had would always know we were going to make that ice cream. She'd sit right there and wait for that dash to come out because she knew we'd give her some ice cream. And then we'd pack it and we'd put it in the basement, set it down in the tub, and then cover it real good, And that would age it, It would be just real hard when we came after eating dinner. We'd have ice cream. And in the summertime, people would come selling things off of the wagons, and men would come with wagons full of watermelons. Well, it wasn't unusual at all for Daddy to buy 12 at a time, and we put them in the basement, and they'd be real cool, and he always liked his watermelon. So many afternoons we'd have watermelon. So we had plenty to eat because he always had a real good garden. And Mother planted, she'd sow greens, and she'd mix her greens. She'd have 2 or 3 kinds in the same bed, so it would be mixed greens, not just collards or not just turnip greens, but it would be mixed. And that was always good in the fall. And one thing Jack liked to do was we'd go out in the garden and pull him a turnip, just wash it off and get a piece of cornbread and eat turnip and cornbread.
Just raw like that?
Yeah, raw, just out of the garden. A lot of people would, do that with onion or radishes or anything, but he liked turnips. grand, his mom and dad and all his brothers and sisters in order. And that, and then do memo. Okay, Dad's mother was Jane Floyd. That was her maiden name. And his was Jackson Sinclair Upshaw. And let's see, the first child was I don't know whether it was Albert. I almost have to look that up to see in order. But there was George Leonidas and Albert and Rosabelle. Of course, Sarah Elizabeth was the oldest. She was the oldest. Yeah, Aunt Leslie. And then after Roosevelt, then there was Maud and Daddy, William Thomas. When Daddy was old enough to go to, I guess it'd be the equivalent of high school, there was a school called an academy up at Fairmount. And so they wanted to send get mixed up, George and Daddy up there to school. So they rented a house up there, and Sarah Elizabeth, their older sister, went up and kept house for them. And they went to school.
Sarah Elizabeth was Aunt Lizzie?
Yes, Aunt Lizzie. And so she kept house for them up there at Fairmount, and that was when the Spanish-American War had broken out. And George got the notion that he wanted to go and join the Army. So it wasn't George that wanted to, my dad wanted to. So George decided he'd get word to his daddy what Tom was going to do. So Grandpa came up on the train that Daddy was going to get on. When his daddy got off, that stopped that. He stopped that right quick. He nipped that in the bud. And then one time, I guess Daddy was going to make his fortune. He decided to go to Florida. And he went down there, and all the work he could find was in a livery stable. And he helped them care for the horses. And one time he got his right hand, between his thumb and his first finger, infected by the bridle of the horse. It made a sore, and it got real infected. And he heard this man say, the doctor say, if it's not better tomorrow, we may have to cut his hand off, amputate. So Daddy decided he'd better get home to his mama real quick, because
now this is Grand?
Yeah, that was Grand, and he was in Florida. Thought he'd make a fortune down there, he was a young man. And he got back home real quick because his mother had some salve that he just knew would cure that, and it did. But he wasn't about to let that doctor amputate his hand.
Boy.
And he went over to Waleska, Georgia, where Reinhardt College is now. And Mother was going to school there. And he saw her on the school campus. And he told his friend, whoever was with him, he said, that's the lady that I want to marry. And so he courted her, and they married there at Waleska. That's where she was born and raised. Waleska, Georgia, on Shoal Creek, at a place called Moore's Mill, because Grandpa had a mill on that creek there.
Oh, so that is her, named after her family.
Yeah, that's Moore's place. So Mother was the oldest of 4 girls, born to John Ripley Moore and Sally Putman. and it was Mother, Beatrice, Bertha, Beatrice, and then Ozella, and then Kenneth, and Lily. I may have those backwards too.
I don't know.
It's Kenny and Lily. And when Lily was 18 months old, she contracted spinal meningitis, and it left her deaf, dumb, and blind in one eye at 18 months. And when she was old enough to go to school, she had to go to the state school for the deaf, and that was over at Cave Springs, Georgia, and had to board. Even though she was just a little girl, she had to board over there and stay, school term. So,
That's Aunt Queenie?
no, that was Aunt Lily.
Yeah, Lily.
Yeah. But when Mother was 9 years old, her mother died, and they moved. The 4 girls moved into Waleska, the town, and they lived with their grandmother, Frances Independence Moore. And Mother said she stood on a little box to help cook and wash the dishes, and she remembers her mother smoked a pipe. Her grandmother smoked a pipe.
Frances Independence?
Sitting by the fire. Yeah, she smoked a pipe. But Mother learned to cook, and then after a while, her daddy remarried, and then he moved them back out into the country. And later he had 4 other children, and that was Frank, and Hayes, and Willard was the baby, and the other one was,
Lorraine?
no, Lorraine.
Lorraine?
Yes, Lorraine. You got it. So, and I think we've established the fact that Grandpa went to Oklahoma with this part of his family and lived out there till he died out there.
Now, did he remarry because his first wife died?
Yes. And this woman had been their housekeeper, I believe, or that he married. And so anyway, he married Mary Donner.
Mary Ann Donner. Now, have you ever been down to the Frances Independence family reunion?
Oh, a lot of years I've been. Yeah, many years I've gone.
Are they still doing that?
Yes, they're going to do that July the 4th, and I've already been called to see if I was coming, and I'll go if I can talk Elaine into going, because it's a little far for me to go by myself. But I'd like to go. There's usually around 100 or more people there. And they come from everywhere. They come from California, Oklahoma, Florida, Connecticut, North Carolina. A lot of people come, but it's getting to be where it's the older generation rather than the younger. And it'll die out, if the younger ones don't pick up interest in it. But yes, I like to go. I used to take Mother and Daddy down there every year, and after he got to where he didn't drive. But he was very much a part of establishing that place, Jody. They built a shed. Grand. Yeah, he took a great interest in that. Of course, it was his wife's people, But he went down there and did a lot of work on it. On the upper side, it's sort of on a hill. On the upper side, they built a little concrete wall to keep the water from rushing, in. And then they built a shed with tin roof, and it's quite long. And then in the center, they hung from the rafters tables, boards for tables. And when you go there, Mackmore, I guess it is, it takes sort of responsibility of getting it ready. They cleaned it and mowed around, and they've even brought in these portable potties, because it's just out in the country, and it's on a creek bank. It's on this shoal creek, and everybody puts their food down, and I'll be right here. Dorothy will be right here, my cousin, and
Is that Dot?
Dot Patterson, and somebody else will be over here. It just seems like everybody knows where to go where.
Oh, yeah.
And just spread your food all the way down through there, and then when time comes, they have the blessing, and everybody starts, and then you just go all the way around. You just fill your plate with everybody's food. It doesn't matter who brought it. You just eat anything you want to. And there's always just plenty. So everybody brings lawn chairs to sit in. Then after the meal, they have a little business session, and they have pledge of allegiance to the flag, and the flag was given by Jack's wife in his memory. And they always put the flag up and pledge their allegiance at the beginning of the business session. And then they announce how many's there or who's there. And we have name tags that we go to a table when we first get there and pick up. And if you don't happen to have one, you make one. And then they recognize like John Ripley's grandchildren or children, descendants, and everybody else's. There were 12 people in that family, John Ripley's family. There were 12 children, and so everybody's recognized and where you come from and all of that. And there's, I don't know whether it'll ever get published or not, but there's a book that Mackmore's trying to put together. Mackmore. Let's see, who is his father? Mother. It wasn't Doc. I can't write off the top of my head. I can't think of who it was. You probably have it though.
Okay, well, I'll find it.
But
so this is all. So really, the root of that tree and the whole celebration is John Ripley.
his father.
On his father, John Keller.
John Keller.
Who married Frances. And her birthday is the
4th of
excuse to
July.
have
The reason to have the reunion.
So was she a real strong person? Did you ever know her?
She was there, and I'm sure I saw her because she died up in the 1900s somewhere. Do you have it? I forget the year. Frances Independence.
Yeah, February 15th, 1917.
She died. No, I wasn't even born.
Yeah. Huh. So that's it's been going on a long time then. Did they start that right after her?
I don't know when the first one was.
What you're saying, Grant helped really.
He really did
the
help.
tradition started?
He really did help build this place down there to have it, and they have a monument now to John Keller Moore and her, and their children are listed on there.
Yeah, you said they've had.
Now there's a cemetery. There's a cemetery down there that's fairly close to where this reunion is held.
Is that the Shoal Creek Cemetery?
Yes, It's down past the church, the Baptist church up there.
That's where
And
she's buried.
she's buried, and so is so is Sally Putman, and so is Aunt Lily. Aunt Lily wanted to be buried out there, so by her mother, so she is. Yeah, this is Francis and Garrison.
So Gran was really. Now, was many of Gran's ancestors living?
Now,
No, at the time that that he was doing his research, his genealogy research, because he seemed to take a real keen interest in Mama's side.
he did. He really did.
I mean, almost more than his, it seemed like. But
I think there was more people that he could talk to and everything on her side than his. I don't know any of his aunts or any, I don't know any of his aunts or uncles or anything like that. All I know is his dad and mother. And his dad was, let's see, I think he lived with an uncle. And when he was just like 15 years old was when the Civil War was going on, and he slipped a horse out of the stable, the corral, and took off and joined Joe Wheeler's cavalry in the Civil War.
Joe Wheeler's cavalry. And who is this again?
That's Jackson Sinclair, Upshaw.
Okay.
And then he got down there to Stone Mountain, and they had a battle, and he got nicked with a bullet. Got shot, and it didn't cause him a great deal of injury, but they found out he was so young, and they sent him back home. So that was the extent of his experience in the war.
That's the Civil War?
That was the Civil War. But when Grandma got quite old, she lived to be 87.
This is Sarah Jane?
Sarah Jane. She would hide food. She would hide potatoes, like back under the bed. They'd find potatoes back under the bed, and this was reverting to the Civil War time when you dug things into the ground, to hide them from the Union soldiers.
Yeah, I've got some transcriptions of letters from some of those days. I think I even have it on this computer, but somebody writing Civil War letters from, and I think it's written back to John Keller. I think it's one of his kids writing back to him. Yeah, it seems like we had a lot of family in the Civil War. Did you know of anybody else?
No. No, I don't know.
So Jackson Sinclair had a brief excursion. But he wasn't even 18? Is that?
No, he was about 15.
About 15?
Yeah, he just slipped off and took a horse and joined the cavalry.
Where does Leonidas come from? There's
I don't know
Jackson's
that name.
granddaddy's name on his father's side was George L. And I only see it as George L. But everybody calls all the other George Leonidas George L. So
it could be that.
I didn't want to assume anything.
Delivering babies.
But you say no.
Elizabeth McMullen.
First thing I have is OBGYN, and I've got 6 weeks.
Now, do you have it back any further than that?
Nope, this is as far back as the records that I got.
I believe I've got more now.
Really?
I'm just so excited. I would feel like I really did something. Forget the mama up there, I would be holding up that baby. I'm going to feel like I really
Sinclair McMullen. Yeah, see where all the names come from.
It's fun to get in the hospital and start doing things and acting like I'm a doctor instead of just sitting and reading and sitting in class all day. I'm really sick of that.
Back to Avon. I don't even have a date.
How's Mark?
He's doing real well too. He's really liking radiology.
He's also helped me.
Well, I have been. I didn't see what else he got married. I haven't seen him.
Oh, really?
It's hard to remember.
Yeah, well, there's no, if I didn't have this, there's no way I would remember.
Yeah.
Don't like it, you don't want to.
Yeah, let's see, he's back in
Doesn't
England.
make any difference.
James Taylor.
I
He even
tell
died
people I
at
don't know
69.
why anyone would ever go to Mexico unless they really love what they were doing it, because it's too much time and too much effort if you don't really like what you're doing.
Someday when I have lots of time and money, I'm going to go back over the pond and pick it up over there. But kind of like to get, sounds like Dot has a whole lot of work that she's done.
Well, she has a lot of, like I told you, she has a lot of papers and things like that. Very interesting. And she's an interesting person. I've got her talking on the cassette. If I had known that you were going to do this, I would have brought it. And
Make a copy of it.
Hey, Mom.
she's a very interesting person. She's younger than I am. She's been interested a longer time. I just let Daddy do it, I mean, I didn't really get interested in it myself. But I guess you found a lot of duplicates.
Yeah, it looked like he had sent out a lot of papers and had people fill them in and send them back. So I've kept all the duplicates and everything, and I said I've got them in a fire safe. You mean the picture? But yeah, it's so much of it's just not having time to do it. Just want to. You don't want to. It's like I don't want to commit to. I haven't researched any of it. A lot of it. You want to make sure you get it right. And some of the duplicates didn't correspond. Yeah, so it's hard to know which one's right. I usually let majority rule. If I had 3 or 4 one way and only 1 or 2 the other way, won't be majority. But you don't want
See,
to.
after Daddy retired, he just almost devoted his time to writing letters. He was an avid letter writer. He wrote presidents, he wrote congressmen, he wrote everybody, and made copies. He always made copies of his letters.
Yeah, carbon copies. I've got
And
a
when he
few of
wrote
them.
Floyd to the Army, he made copies.
Usually we don't keep candy in the house, so I think it's what you
Good for
grow
the
up
rest of us.
with around. You learn that
Because,
you're really mail and
Yeah, because that's the only way you find these things.
If it's been put down.
Because I've got some correspondence between him
ask
and
his
Dot.
brother or sister. He says, no.
He had the first bathtub, didn't he? Wasn't that the first bathtub in Etowah? First house with running water?
That was the first bathtub in Etowah. And it's a long bathtub, and he's still there.
He didn't want to share anything with anybody.
The people that bought the house really loved the
Well, he didn't
house.
have a whole lot of choices.
And they've remodeled some.
He's
Very
adamant.
much
He
the
means no.
same
Anytime you
way.
ask him, he's never said yes. Never.
And of course, they moved out
It is always
the bathtub
no.
like this. And but they seem just to really appreciate the house, and that it makes it easier for me,
Funny how people
knowing
change
that they do.
That's such a great house. I remember going down there during Christmas. And I'm trying to remember.
You remember the back porch then?
Oh yeah, I remember the
tables
back
laden
porch.
with food.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I've got some of those. I brought one of those African violets back, and it just took off. I mean, Mom still has like tons of those, so we've got tons of the African violets for Granny's back porch.
We lost them all when the house burned. February the 26th, my birthday, in 1974, February. And of course the house wasn't damaged too badly with the fire, but the water that they used to put the fire out just ruined it. And it was the coldest night. And of course all electricity went off. And we lost the power. And I took Daddy over to the house, and then Ruth came down to Knoxville and took him to Knoxville. And he stayed between Francis and Ruth, then till the end of March. No, we stayed past March. It wasn't until April that the house was, that people were so slow about redoing it, And I finally wound up painting the bedroom to get it back there myself. And then on April the I want to say the 3rd, it could have been the 4th, April 3rd or 4th, 1974, we had a tornado. And it ripped through Etowah, and it was one of these that jumped. But it missed the corner of 10th Street and Georgia Avenue. I was up at the store getting Bob, and I thought, oh, what if his house is hit and we just got it back ready almost for him to move back in, but it had missed it by a block or more. And so it wasn't long until we could move him back home. And he lived, just till October.
That's a good idea, right?
But I stayed with him
And I know
practically the whole time.
Oh, you're kidding.
I'd stay, and Bob would come over there and eat breakfast and go to work, and then come back to supper, and then stay till bedtime, and go home. And sometimes Ruth would come down and stay, and I'd go back home. But that's kind of the way we worked this last year.
Now, how long did you guys have your store?
Bob and his dad put the store up in 1939 down on Tennessee Avenue, and he was there until 1963, and then he bought at the junction of Ash and Pike, Pennsylvania.
Bread and the cheese
He
sauce
lived out
and the
there, and
meal
he
and
stayed there till he died.
Oh, we're just chatting.
Yeah, because that's the one I remember. I didn't remember the first one.
No, you didn't know the one on Tennessee Avenue.
I've tried to
Had real good thriving business down there, but after so long the supermarket started just pushing out the little store. And it was just a little neighborhood store then. They had a lot of business, and it got to the place where he really didn't need even one person to help. So that's when I started keeping Noah. My grandson Noah was born in '71, and Elaine took that first year off, and when she went back to teaching, I kept him, and I kept him over at Daddy's first. And then when they moved, they lived there a while. They lived there in the house with Daddy for a while, and Noah was born while they were living there, and then they built where they are now, which is 5 miles out of Etowah. And she would bring Noah in to me, and I'd keep him till school was out, and she'd come pick him up. So that worked out pretty good. Daddy loved it and loved the dog. She had a Dalmatian, and the dog was such a sweet-natured dog, and Daddy loved that dog.
He came to see us in Texas. Did you know that?
Yes.
He came down and
Right.
stayed in my bed. I moved in with Jeff for the week. But yeah, he got around. I mean, he must have been.
Well, when
in
he
his
was
late
81,
80s.
he went up to Illinois, Skokie, Illinois, where Joan was living. I believe that's where she was right then, and visited with her. And then he took notion he'd go out to California from there, and he flew from there out to California. Well, he struck up a conversation and all with a flight attendant, and they became real close friends and just wrote letters. It was a young lady, and she wrote to him, called him Grand, and wrote for a long, long time. But that was his first flight, was when he was 81 years old.
Oh, is that right? That was the first time he ever flew.
But I always tell you this now, John Keller Moore, I guess I was 7 or 8 years old before I'd ever seen him. And I'm sure I knew that Mother's father was living, but I didn't know him. And so one day he just showed up at Etowah.
Now this was, because Ruth was telling me a story where you guys were coming back at night, and he was standing under the tree smoking a cigar. Was that what it was?
And he spoke Bertha, and we didn't know he was there until then. Well, he visited with us, and I knew Grandpa he smoked White Owl cigars, and he said, "Awshaw." So he said, "Awshaw" was his byword, and then he would come, or Uncle Frank would bring him when they were going to this reunion. They'd come by and stay all night maybe, or just for the day. And usually would be driving a great big car, you know. Frank would have a diamond on the band, and we thought they were real wealthy, and I guess they were in a way. But that was our contact with him. And then when I was, let's see, 1936, we went out there. And Mother took us on the train, and Daddy, you know, could get passes for all of us. So we went from Etowah to Montgomery to New Orleans, and we took a tour of New Orleans. And then we went up to Fort Worth. I remember Floyd eating a big plate of pancakes at Fort Worth. And then we went on up, got off the train up there at Chickasha, which is real close to Anadarko, and they met us there. And we stayed a week or more. And then we came back by Oklahoma City and St. Louis and over to Cincinnati and then down to Etowah. So we, you know, made a great big circle. So it was my first experience to see Indians on the reservation, you know, and they took us down at night and they had a, you know, celebration of some kind. It was dark and they did a dance. They called the Stomp Dance. And they announced over the speaker that we had visitors from Tennessee. It didn't scare me because we were with, you know, Uncle Frank and all of them, so it didn't really scare me. And we rode horses. They took us to see a rodeo, one of the biggest rodeos. And then we rode down, Frank took us in the car down to Texas,
I remember my mother was
Graham, Texas, to see Mother's cousin,
Louis
Louis Brooks and his family. And down there, they had this real old house. It's in on the historical list, you know, now. And I remember it was Aunt somebody, Mother's aunt somebody, and she was real old, and she smoked a cob pipe. And the window sills were, I guess they were 12 inches deep, and they had shutters and all from the Indians, you know, to bar them up. And we had to sleep in the yard on cots. Grandpa was sleeping on the porch, and during the night he was calling the pigs. He had pigs at home, you know, and he'd go out and he'd say, "Woo, woo, woo," and they'd just come flying, you know, and he'd feed them. And in the night, in his sleep, he was calling the pigs.
He's still calling the pigs. So this is Grandpa John Keller again?
Yeah, Grandpa Moore. And that was that visit to Oklahoma in 1937.
Because I've got some newspaper clippings of the dedication of that house in Graham, Texas. And Louis Brooks and some things like that. Because weren't they married? Weren't John Keller and Louis Brooks married in a double wedding? They were in Graham?
Sally Putman and, yeah, that's right.
So what took John Keller out to Graham in the first place? Because he was out there, and then he was back in Etowah, right? Or in that area? And then he moved out to Oklahoma?
You know, I don't know what took him out there that time. I don't. No, he wasn't ever around Etowah. He wasn't ever in the Etowah area.
Oh, he was in Georgia?
Except to visit us down in Cherokee County,
Okay,
Georgia.
that's right.
Well, that's out of Canton.
Right.
Out from Canton.
And as far as you know, he was, they were making a little moonshine, and that's
what they told down there, sure was, that they were making moonshine, and the revenuers were coming, and a revenuer got shot.
Yep, heard
And
that.
the authorities were coming to find them, and they took off. So that's the country. But as far as Dot knows, no one was ever really indicted or, you know, proven guilty of that. I guess they covered it up.
I guess so. Sounds like it.
But you know, back then,
Cover the tracks.
if you hear the history, like in that TV series, Christie, did you watch any of that? Well, that was up in the Appalachians, you know, and they had to make moonshine to make a living.
Right.
You know? So A lot of times that's what happened. They just,
Yeah, and the taxes would
And I was just
take
amazed.
away all their
You
money.
know, listening to all the things that she's gone through.
Yeah, that's
She didn't give up. And she just
I don't know if you-
it's the way of life for them.
yeah,
eventually she decided
yeah.
to
It's colorful history too. I mean, it's one of those things where
me not giving up.
you don't choose your ancestors one way or the other.
That's right.
So it's all good history. Because Gran seemed like a real exemplary citizen. I mean, it seems like Etowah, he helped really build the city.
Well, he was, you know, he wasn't a mayor or anything, but he was always social, civic minded, and really civic minded. Now, when they wanted to build a school, a high school, the way they did was go through the town and canvass the town and ask people to contribute, you know. Well, they sold brick. They call it selling brick, you know. You'd buy so many bricks. Well, he went through the town and he was supposed to have sold more than anybody else just by walking and seeing people. And then when they wanted to build a highway between Etowah and Athens, he was on the planning commission, I believe, at that time, Etowah Planning Commission, and he made many trips, like to Nashville with other men, to see about getting that highway straightened out and built. So he was always interested in the schools, especially. When we were growing up, he'd come to school and have spelling bees.
Yeah, he
He's
put them
very
together.
interested in, you know, people getting an education. And I always ready to see him come because, you know, he was my father.
Yeah.
So I would try to miss the first word I ever had so I could sit down real quick. But he would give like stick candy or dimes as prizes, you know. But it was just to promote interest in education. And he was very influential in getting the playground equipment for the grammar school. They didn't have anything. And they put in swings, slides, seesaws, and merry-go-rounds. And he was very into that, you know, getting going. So, yes, he was very interested in that whole thing.
And they caught lots of ducks and baby ducks, and they caught like 25 fish. We had a great time.
Well, you've been talking for a while. You want to take a break?
I believe I've talked everything I know. Oh.
That was